Everyone, so I'm going to be taking a look at the Transformers Kingdom Pulsecon exclusive 2021 Ravage Decepticons Forever 2 pack. So here is Ravage, of course, and here is the G1 Ravage reissue. And before we take a look at that, let's take a look at the packaging. So here's the packaging, and I think it looks really, really nice. We have Transformers War for Cybertron Trilogy. We have Covert Agent Ravage there. We have Decepticons Forever Ravage. We do have Transformers. On this side, we do have some nice artwork of Ravage there with a nice Predacon symbol. On the back, we do have a nice picture there of him transforming into his robot mode, or robot mode transforming into the cassette mode, which is very, very cool. And on the side, which you can pause the video if you want to read it, there is a nice long text and description of this character. And that's pretty much it for the packaging. So before we take a look at these figures, let's do a comparison, and then I will quickly look at the cardboard cutout. We have a quick comparison between both Pulsecon exclusives so far. We have the Untitled Judgment 5-pack from 2020. We have the Ravage 2-pack from 2021. Of course, that will be the main subject of this review today. But I just want to do a really quick comparison while they're both on their cardboard cutouts right here. And I think this looks absolutely amazing together. I will be displaying these two sets on a shelf together, and I think that will look really, really cool. I will make sure to post a picture of them in the beginning, a little intro, so make sure you don't skip through that. I will also be doing an upcoming little updated setup review or video. It won't be very long, but there is a lot of things that have changed, so make sure to check that out. But here they are, and I think they look really, really cool. I'm so glad I was able to get both of these sets. Let me know which one do you like more between these two. I'm pretty sure this one is still in stock on Hasbro Pulse. Of course, the Quintesson Pit of Judgment is not. That one was, of course, a year ago, but you could probably get on eBay, but do be aware, it is a Pulsecon exclusive, so it could get very, very pricey. But I do think both these sets are really, really cool. Love all the figures and components in this set. Of course, this one's a lot more expensive than that one. Of course, it does come with 5 things, but let me know which one you like more. I really like both of them, but I would have to say probably I do like the Quintesson one more because it was a long overdue set of figures that they really needed to make, and I'm so glad they did. So, that's a really quick comparison. Let me just quickly show all the, nice designs on the cardboard cutout that came with the Ravage pack, and then we'll get into Covert Agent Ravage. Just wanted to take a quick look at the cardboard cutout. Apologies that it is leaning back a little bit. It does kind of depend on the weight of the figures when they're on there for it to stand up straight, but let's just quickly take a look at all the details. I do think this really good cardboard cutout does capture the scene amazingly from the Beast Wars series. If you don't know, this character Ravage was in the Beast Wars show, I think, for at least 2, maybe 3 episodes, and it does talk about that on the box. So again, if you want to go read that description, just pause the video where I showed it, and it just talks about a brief little bio of the character and what he does in the show. But here it is, and I think it looks really, really cool. We have a nice Predacon symbol there. We do have 2 windows there that are nice bright red. We do have a 2-dimensional seat. We have a lot of blue lines and some nice paneling gray detailing there, which does look really good. We have some more red down there. And you can see inside that slot there's not, a ton of crazy detailing, some more blue paneling, and some more blue lines on the floor and on the side. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I just wanted to show you the nice cardboard cutout with all the figures of it, just so you could see the full detailing and effect that you were going to get with this pack before you bought it. So let's get into Covert Agent Ravage. It is Covert Agent Ravage, so let's take a look at the details, articulation, of course some comparisons, the transformation, and all that sort of stuff. So I will be taking a look at the G1 Ravage reissue at last, so do make sure you stay tuned for that and watch the full review. But of course, I wanted to do him first because he definitely is the main attraction out of this set, so let's get right into it. So here he is. I think he looks so G1 accurate and so good looking. Let me just lower the camera a bit just so you can see him fully, but let's take a look at the details. So overall, just amazing detailing, very, very G1-esque and accurate and very shiny, and just overall looks amazing. We have some silver for the shoulders, some black for the lower arms, and most of the chest region. We do have some more silver there, some more kind of chrome tan there. Also on the legs as well, we have some red and silver for the crotch. For the head sculpt, which does look amazing, we have some nice red for the eyes and the tongue, and some silver for the teeth. We do have a little bit of white on top, which looks pretty good. We do have some texturing all over the figure on the head, the legs, on the, of course, the back legs back there, which I will show in just a second. For the weapons, we just have some silver and black. Very plain, very simple, but that's how it looked in the show. There is another way you can store the pistols, which I will show again in just a second. We do have a nice Predacon symbol there, which does look quite nice. On the back, we do have the legs stored like that. That is slightly different from the Cheetor / Shadow Panther look, where they were flipped the other way. You cannot really do that without messing up the configuration of the figure, so they do have to stay that way. But I think they do compress quite nicely. Of course, you can kind of bend them out if you wanted to, or, you know, there is still a little bit of options that you can do with the legs, but overall, you really can just sit them flush like that. But overall, quite nice storage for that. For the legs, again, more silver and that tan color that I was talking about. More texturing and black. We do have the little feet there, but still quite compressed quite well. We do have the feet there, which are just silver. And we do have another thing that's very different from the Shadow Panther and Cheetor mold is there is the tail back here, which does have some articulation, which I will show in just a second, but still very, very nice. So all the details do look very, very nice on this figure. Let's get into some comparisons. So here is Ravage with Shadow Panther, which is a similar version of this mold. I don't have Tigertron yet, but whenever I do have Tigertron, I will make sure to do a comparison between, of course, Ravage and Tigertron. And, of course, I have to compare him with the original mold, Cheetor. There we go. Apologies, he's kind of shaking a little bit, but there we go. So overall, these three molds are pretty good. I would have to say that definitely Ravage is a major improvement over these two. I do like Shadow Panther between, of course, him and Cheetor. He is a good figure, but he still does have some problems. I don't really like the shoulder panels on these two figures, so definitely it was an improvement to have a more slender look for the arms. But of course, in the show, that's how they were. They did have kind of a shoulder piece for Cheetor, so that's really just, you know, kind of overall general complaining with the style in general, not really the figure. But still, figure-wise, this is an improvement. The transformation is better, of course. If you've watched my reviews for Shadow Panther or Cheetor, you know that Cheetor had some major breakage problems, and that was not really for just me. It was a lot of people had breakage problems in several different areas, and this has none of those problems, which is so good, so you know, just relieving. But yeah, look really cool together. I've heard Tigertron is an amazing mold. I'll be getting him in about a few weeks, I would say. Of course, there is some delays with the whole pandemic and stuff like that, so it is, you know, expected that it might be delayed. Hopefully not, but I have heard it's an amazing mold. This is quite similar to the Tigertron mold. Of course, the head sculpt is different and the weapons, but I'm pretty sure the tail is the same way. I think you maybe can detach it for Tigertron to become a weapon. This one you can't, but there is major similarities. But I think they do look very cool. Again, definitely an improvement. So let's take these out to the side, and I'll show you some features on this figure, and of course some articulation. So feature-wise, of course, he does come with these pistols, which do look very cool. Of course, you can take them out of his hand if you want to, and do have him like this, like that, without his weapons if you want to, or you can do this like in the show he did one time, where there is a slot and a tab on the weapon, and you can just tab that right into place, which I think does look very cool. Again, great attention to detail for this figure, because he does do this in the show like once. Of course, spoiler, he does die in the old Beast Wars show, so he's not in there for very long. So very nice attention to detail, because he only does that feature like once, and they were like, yes, we're going to do this feature with that toy. I think that's really nice, because typically for figures, really there's only one storage in the robot mode, and of course another way of storage in the ult mode, but there is really two ways to have this figure with these weapons, which is really nice. I think that does look really nice. People are worried that there might be paint scratching if you put it on the leg. I don't think there will be. Just make sure you don't like shimmy or like move the weapon around too much, and don't scratch it against the leg too much. If you just leave it there, I think it will be fine. But I think that looks really nice. Kind of cowboy style storage, which does look very cool. You could probably get him in a position where he can hold his gun if you wanted to. In a stop motion, you could have him take it out of his little holster, and that'd be pretty cool. But let's get into some articulation. So I'm just going to take the weapons off just in case, so they don't get in the way or anything. just take those off, put them off to the side. So we're going to start at the top. So for the head, there's a ball joint which can move that far that way, that far the other way. Of course, the mouth can open, but it can also close like that. So there we go. It can't really look up or down, just a slight bit really. For the arms, it can rotate all the way around a very tight joint. It can move that far up, that far down. There is a very, very tight swivel. There is a double joint there, as you can see. There's a swivel at the hands, elbow bend, back and forward to a very good degree. For the waist, it works the same really as Jaguar and Shadow Panther. It does pretty much have a full 360. You can move these legs out of the way if they're in the way. It can rotate that far that way. It does stop. You do have to just turn it the other way, and it can rotate that way as well. So pretty much a full 360 degree. For the tail, I really won't talk about this articulation at all. That's really for beast mode. But for the tail, it can move that far out if you want to have more of a dynamic pose, or if you want to really compress it in, you can have it lower down next to the legs. Just make sure it doesn't scrape the surface you're putting it on. For the legs can do a full split like that. There can be a swivel at the lower leg all the way around, a bend at the knee, and an ankle tilt. And that's pretty much it for articulation. Let me just kind of straighten him up a tiny bit, and then we'll get into transformation. So transformation for this figure is completely different for Jaguar and Shadow Panther. It is pretty much brand new. The only similar parts are really the legs, which does not bother me at all because they both do turn into a fast animal, a jaguar, a panther, or a cheetah. So that doesn't bother me at all. So let's get right into it. The top part is quite smooth. There is one area where I will apologize ahead of time if there is some kind of mix-up, because sometimes things do get not very smooth. I'll point it out whenever it happens, if it does happen. But let's get right into it. So first, what you're going to want to do is use that swivel there, and there is a tab, and that will go right into that slot. Before you do that, you're going to want to rotate the hand to where this whole panel is nice and flush. So you're just going to tab that into place using that nice joint there for the elbow. As you can see, that's nice and flush now. Do the same thing for the other side. Just rotate that way. And then you're going to rotate the hand, of course, to where it is nice and flush. Using that tab and slot, tab that into place. Just like that. And now what we can do is disconnect this whole assembly here. And this engineering, I think, is amazing. It's so cool how this works. I didn't watch that many reviews for this before I had it, so when I got it and I first transformed it for the first time, I was just blown away how awesome it looks. So now you're just going to move this whole assembly back like that. Just make sure that's fully moved back so it's not in the way. And now you can get these little back legs, move these out, and then it will reveal these cavities here. And I'll talk about that in just a second, what those are used for. Bring in the arms and make sure they're down and compressed like that. And there we go. So now what you're going to want to do is get these little areas here, and they will go through these cavities. So here's kind of the not very smooth area, because sometimes it will go in smoothly, sometimes not so much. It has a tendency for the wrists to swivel out of place. I think this time it might be perfect, which is very fortunate, but do be aware if you get this figure and it moves out of place, don't just force it in there, because it could scratch the paint and mess up something. So make sure these are aligned perfectly before you fully collapse this in. But yeah, let's just take a time to really appreciate that awesome engineering. It is so much better how they did this than the Jaguar and Shadow Panther way with that head, because there is no breakage problems with this, which is absolutely amazing on their part, and I'm so glad of that. So now for this head part, you're just going to use these little tabs on the side, and that will just clip in. You might have to add a little bit of pressure for them to stay. There is a small gap there, but nothing too bad. Now for these parts, you're just going to bring them in just like that. So there you go, just bring them down. You can position them in a more dynamic pose later. So now for the back legs, we all know how to do this. You just bring these feet in, bring the, of course, animal legs back. The tail you can really put anywhere. Do the same thing for the other leg. bring the animal leg out, put the foot in, bring the tail down, again, to however you wish, and there is the Jaguar mode fully complete. Yeah, the Jaguar mode fully complete and transformed. Let's take a look at the details, and then we'll get into all the nice articulation and the storage for the weapons. So here it is, and I think it looks absolutely amazing. There is some really good articulation for the head, which I will show in just a second, but yeah, just really cool. So for the detail-wise, we have some nice silver here and there. Yes, we do have the feet kind of sticking out, but it's nothing too bad. We do have the nice tail there with lots of fur texturing all over this figure, which just look really nice. We have some nice beating red eyes there on the face. We of course can open that mouth if you want to and reveal more of that teeth, and the red for the tongue again. The front legs look really nice. Nice talons for the paws. Same detailing on the back feet, of course. Nice slender, slim legs. Look very nice. We do have some spikes here and there, but overall very nice. We do have the chest kind of the same way, but nothing too bad. On the top, pretty plain, lots of black, bits of silver here and there, but overall, an amazing looking Jaguar mode. So overall, for feature-wise, or storage-wise, for the weapons, you can get the weapons here. And you can kind of do this, sort of like the classic Ravage, which I will show all the articulation and transformation for in just a second. But if you have a G1 Ravage, or if you've seen the show, he has his weapons on the back, and that's kind of how it was like this, which is very cool, kind of a G1-esque style storage, which is very cool. And I'm very glad they actually kind of kept it the same way for storage-wise, because, of course, he did not transform into a Jaguar in the Beast Wars show. He transformed into the cassette, and of course that would be impossible for a figure this size to transform into a small, tiny cassette like it did in the show. That makes no sense. So I do think they did take some pretty good attention into detailing for this Jaguar mode, even though in the show he doesn't even transform into one. So yeah, really cool, nice storage, very G1-esque looking. Definitely looks like they put some thought into this Jaguar mode, which is very nice. Very cool. So for articulation-wise, the head, I'm so glad of this. For the Shadow Panther mold and the Cheetor mold, they both severely lacked the articulation for the head. It was just stuck in one place. Of course, the mouth could open, but there was no ball joint. So there is a ball joint at the head. Of course, the mouth can open. If we just take the weapons off, just in case, we don't want them falling off or getting in the way. For the front legs, these can rotate fully around. It's on a ball joint. It can move out, in. There is a bend at the leg there, and the paws, all four of them are on a ball joint. For the tail, it can move that far up, that far down. We'll move it up just in case so it's not in the way. For the back legs, these are the robot mode legs, so there is a ton of articulation in them. I will show it all just to show you what you can do with this Jaguar. It can do a full splits. There's a bend back and forward. And there is another bend at this section here, in and out to a very good degree. And again, a ball joint at the paw. And that's pretty much it for the articulation on the legs. There's a ton of it. Again, these are the robot mode legs, so really a lot of the articulation that I showed earlier stays the same into this alt mode. But yeah, amazing looking Jaguar, really good. Let me know which one you like most of the animals so far, this one, Cheetor, or Shadow Panther. Let's get into some comparisons. So here we have a quick comparison with the original mold Cheetor. As you can see, they are overall quite similar, but definitely some major differences. Difference-wise, of course, the head sculpt of the animal. He is a Jaguar, he is a cheetah. The tail is different because this one does disconnect into a scythe. This one does stay connected, which is honestly, I would really like if they redid this Cheetor and put it in this mold, or of course the Tigertron mold. I would be really glad if they just had done that in the first place. Of course, that would not be size accurate to the show because Cheetor was a small bot in the show, but honestly, I'd be okay if it wasn't size accurate. Definitely, it would be a much better figure if they used the Tigertron mold, but still, as you can see, major differences. Similarity-wise, the structure of the legs are quite similar. As you can see, they're very similar, just paint, front and back. The structure is very similar. The transformation is quite different. There was major breakage problems with this one, none with this one. Definitely a more smooth transformation, lots more clearance to have the head. Again, if you have watched my review, you know what I'm talking about. definitely go make sure, if you haven't, go see the Shadow Panther review and the Cheetah review, because there is some key areas that I did talk about with breakage problems and overall clearance issues, but this does definitely fix all those problems, which is very nice, and I'm hoping that is the same for Tigertron. So overall, very, very cool figures to put them next to each other. Definitely a major improvement. So let's just wrap up with some final thoughts with the Covert Agent Ravage, and then we'll get into the G1 reissue Ravage. The final thoughts for this Covert Agent Ravage: I think it's an amazing figure. Let's start with the robot mode. So the robot mode, I love the accessories, the storage to hold it in the hands or on the legs. Very nice attention to detail. I do like how the tail does not disconnect, because the scythe weapon with the Cheetor and Shadow Panther was not a good weapon. The weapons in this are much better. Yes, they are two identical weapons, but very classic G1-esque looking weapons, very original to the Beast Wars show. The overall articulation for the robot mode is really good. The details, amazing. For the transformation, I think it's much better. There's no breakage problems. Very smooth, just a little bit, you know, kind of messy in some areas back there. You just gotta make sure they align perfectly in that area, or it could be a little bit bad or annoying. For the beast mode, definitely improvement articulation-wise. Of course, for the head, there's a ball joint now. That's what something severely lacked with the Cheetor mold and the Shadow Panther version. They had no head articulation really at all for the beast mode. Really only the mouth open, and that was it, which isn't saying much. But again, for the beast mode, great details, great storage, very G1 kind of esque accurate to have the weapons on the back legs facing back. You could really say they're like boosters for him to launch forward, which is pretty cool. I do think they really spent quite a good amount of time on the Jaguar mode for being a mode that never existed in the Beast Wars show. He didn't transform into a Jaguar, he transformed into a small cassette, which of course does not make any sense. They couldn't do that, of course, with a figure this size, a Voyager figure, and to transform it into a small cassette. That would never work. That's why the G1 reissue Ravage does come in the set, so you can kind of have a little mind trick with people, you know, showing and recreating that really classic scene in the show. If you have seen those episodes, you know what I'm talking about. So that's really cool. Overall, an amazing Covert Agent Ravage. Let's quickly take a look at the G1 reissue Ravage. So here you have the G1 reissue Ravage, and it's a small little cassette, of course, has the classic weapons. I think it looks really good. Let's take a look at the details. So it is the classic form of the G1 Ravage. There is some new printing detailing. I will have a comparison with the original G1 Ravage in just a second, but it does come with those little weapons, which we will take a look at in just a second. But overall, I think the details are quite nice. We do have some die cast in the legs. You can feel it with the cold touch technique, which of course I will talk about when it's in this beast mode. We have a little MC, we have 60, we have A there. We have a lot of lines and stripes. We have kind of a little grid map there, you could say. Some holes there, which will come into play later for the beast mode. Nice circle there. We do have Japan, kind of a grid system. On the other side, we do have a nice Decepticon symbol, more of that silver paint with black. We do have the head peeking out there with the silver eyes, but overall very cool to see. We have more of that grid systems. Really nice detailing everywhere. Very, very cool. So for a quick comparison, I can bring out the G1 Ravage. We're going to start with looking at them side by side with this side here. As you can see, they're quite similar, but of course there is some differences. They both do say Japan. They both do have that 60 and the A and the MC on that top corner there. But for this little area here, there's like a diagram of a transformer, but on here there's like kind of a grid little map system. I don't know what you would call that, but still very cool. Also the colors. So as you can see for these little leg areas here, these are really more just kind of the metal color. It's not painted silver at all, which that just came that way. It didn't wear off or anything. There is some paint chipping here and there. That's not really just because of the difference, that's because of where I've had this figure for quite a while. But yes, as you can see, they're quite different. As you can see also with the eyes for the beast, these are silver, these are yellow. Flipping it around, definitely a major difference here. The only detail on this side for this figure is that, you know, rub and reveal sticker. That's pretty much it. For this, there's a lot of silver, Decepticon symbols, tons of it. They both do have die cast in their feet, which is a pretty cool little thing that they kept for this reissue Ravage, which is very nice. So that's pretty much it for comparisons. Let me just put these two down. As you can see, very, very similar. Let me just lower the camera a bit so you can see. So as you can see, the weapons. These two came with the Pulsecon, and these two came with the G1 Ravage. As you can see, they're very, very similar. If you're wondering, is the color washed? Yes, I have, again, had this G1 Ravage for quite a while, so the silver is kind of washed, kind of warped away. It's a little bit withered, as you can see. I'm not sure if you can tell on camera, but in person, it is definitely different. But as you can see, overall, the sculpt of the weapons are pretty much the exact same, maybe just a better fresh coat of paint on this Pulsecon one. But very cool to have them next to each other, and it'll be pretty cool to show them both in beast mode. So I'm just going to take the G1 version off to the side, move all that off to the side too, and I can take the Pulsecon ones as well. I'm just going to quickly transform it, and then we'll take a look at the articulation, the details, and a quick comparison. So transformation is very, very simple. I think everyone knows it. You're just going to bring the tail out, just bring the head out, get the back legs, you're going to move them out, and like that. Get the front ones, move them out and out like that. And then of course you can position it however you wish. But before I really position it, I'm just going to do articulation now because everything is already kind of messy. If you have a G1 Ravage or a reissue one, you know it is a pain to stand. I will stand it in just a second. I want to do the articulation first. So for the tail, it can move that far in, that far out, like that. For the head, that far back, that far forward. For the back legs, so there is a hinge here, it can hinge that far back, that far forward. There is another hinge at that area there, so it can bend that far back, that far forward. For the paw, this little section here, I am grouping both legs together just to make it easier. It can move that far back and that far forward. Not a ton of articulation for the paw, but that's nothing too bad. For the front legs, so there is a hinge there again, so you can hinge that far forward, you can hinge that far back. For this hinge here, you can hinge that far forward, you can hinge that far back. And for the paw, again, not a major degree of articulation, really just that far forward and that far back. Apologies that it's kind of flopping around. I do kind of wish the joints for this reissue Ravage were tighter. My older G1 version definitely has tighter joints, but overall, pretty good degree of articulation. Detail-wise, really, it's just all the same details that we saw in the cassette, just kind of broken up between the legs and kind of everywhere. As you can see, it's kind of broken up and stuff. As you can see, for the front paws, there is a little bit stripe of silver there, but the back does not have that, so it's a really interesting detail to point out. So let me just kind of neaten up this Ravage, get him in a good position where I can sit him on the table, and then we'll make a quick comparison. Here I have a quick comparison. Here's the Pulsecon reissue Ravage, and here's the G1 Ravage. So as you can see, they're very, very similar, really just paint. The weapons are the same. As you can see, the eyes on this one are really golden. On this one, they're silver, but both have die cast, as the legs on this one are really just the same metallic color, not really paint at all, really just silver on that one. And they both do have a really cool feature. As you can see on the front legs, they do have a nice stripe of silver, both for the G1 and the Pulsecon, which is a very nice, really small attention detail that they kept for both of them, which is very, very cool. So again, I do think the joints on this one should be tighter. I've had that G1 Ravage for about 13 years. I got it when I was really, really young, and the joints have kept up, and they're still very tight. They were even tighter when I first got it. This one, of course, I just got about a few days ago, and the joints, I have to say, are a little bit too loose to my liking, but of course, that does not bug me at all. Really that much, because I will be keeping that one in the cassette mode. This one will stay in the typical beast mode. But I think they do look very cool next to each other. Of course, the overall structure the same, the articulation the same, and that's pretty much it. Tell me what you think of the nice G1 reissue Ravage. Which one do you like more, the G1 or the reissue version? I do kind of wish if they maybe had kept the rub and reveal sticker and put it on that one, but I do know that does take up quite a bit of room. As you can see on this one, it really just takes up a ton of room in that corner. But overall, pretty cool to have these next to each other. Let's finish up with some final thoughts. I think both these figures are really, really good. I just want to say I'm very impressed that this figure here is actually actually standing on this moving turntable. But back to the final thoughts. I think both these figures are amazing. I really do like Covert Agent Ravage. The articulation, the details, just overall amazing. The beast, the robot mode, just really, really good. I do like the G1 Ratio Ravage. I think it's a nice little throw in there, just so you can recreate that really cool scene in the G1 in the Beast Wars show, where you can really show how it's a bigger figure turning into a small cassette, which doesn't really make any sense. Of course, they could not do it with this figure alone. They couldn't have had a big Voyager class figure turn into a small cassette. I do think I really like how they put a lot of focus, and you can tell how they put a lot of focus and energy into the Jaguar mode, even though he doesn't even transform to that in the Beast Wars show. Let me know what you think of both these figures in the comment section below, and if you have the Quintessence Page unit, or if you don't, which one do you like more, this Pulsecon exclusive or the 2020 Pulsecon exclusive? Overall, a really good set. I'm really, really happy to be able to have this. Again, highly suggest to get it, not just because it's rare, because the figures are amazing, and again, yes, because it's really rare, because once it sells out, I don't know when they're actually ever going to restock this again, and of course, the aftermarket will be ridiculously priced high. So let me know what you think in the comments, and I hope you enjoyed this review, and I'll see you next time.